Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 2. In this lesson, we are going to look at how we can query data, sort and filter data. In last week's lessons, we looked at the basics of querying data. We learned how to use the select statement. We are going to look at that in deeper details in this lesson. So start up MySQL workbench and select the connection that you want to connect to and enter your database password that you set when you created or when you installed MySQL workbench. So we are going to use the circular database, and the statement is use database name, and when we execute this, it selects the database. We're going to be working with different tables for us to be able to illustrate what we want to do. So when we use the select statement, what we do is to select data from one or more tables. When we want to select data from more than one table, we use a join statement, which we are going to see in later lesson. But we use the select statement to select one or more columns from a table or from multiple tables. If I want to select just specific columns, I will name the columns. But before that, let's select all from a database table called actor. So we have an actor table here. And when we select from this, we can see all of the column names. So if I want to select specific columns, let's say I want to select first name and last name from actor. I only want the first name and the last name columns from the actor. So you can specify the list of columns you want as a comma separated list from a table name. We also saw last week that we can use a select statement without the from clause. So we don't want to select from any particular database. Let's say, for instance, I want to select 1 plus 1. I just want to do an operation of 1 plus 1. We are going to be getting 2 as the answer. So these are the kind of cases where you can use the select statement without a from clause. Or let's say I want to concatenate my first and last name into a full name. We have a concat method like this between concat. I can say concat first name. Let me write my first name here as Mildred, and I want to concatenate first name and last name. So I'll say I'm concatenating first name. I'll put a space here and last name, and then when I run this, I will get my first and last name. So I put a space before this, so you can print out space between the first and last name. But we can see that the column name is just the name of the operation that was performed. There is something we call alias that we can use, and alias is used to name a column when we perform operations like this. And the alias uses the select concat first name last name, which is my first and last name, has, let's say, name. So it's going to name the return column name, and when we run this, it now becomes name. So every time you want to rename a column, when you do a select operation, you use has alias to provide a new name for the column. Let's look at how we can filter data from database table, and then we use this along with logical operators. We saw an example of that in the last lesson. So we can do something like select concat, and this time we are concatenating first name, and we want to have last name also, and we want this from the table actor, and we want it to return as full name. So we want it to return the first and last name on one column, but it should rename the column full name. When I run this, the problem we are going to have is that there will be no space between first and last name, and the column name is first underscore name and last underscore name. I think that's how it is. And run this, and so we have the first and last name here, and the problem we're having with this is that we can't see a space between the first and the last name. What we can do now is to put a quote that has a space like this and a comma, and then when we run this, we're going to have first and last name with this. Now we're selecting select concat first and last name from actor has full name is not the correct syntax. The has to come immediately after the select statement, before the from statement. So I'm making some of these mistakes because there might be common mistakes you will make, and it will be difficult for you to trace where your mistake is coming from, because these are mistakes I made at the beginning. So select concat first name last name has full name. So remember, the alias should come immediately after the column that you are selecting, before the from clause. So I'll do this, I'll refresh, and then we have full name as the heading. So this is how we use alias to do a select operation. So let's look at how to sort this data, and then we will now go further to look at how to filter conditionally using different logical operators. To sort data in MySQL, we use a particular clause called the order by clause. Let's say we return the full name of this person, but we want to sort it by alphabetical order of, let's say, the last name. We're going to use a clause called order by. Now ignore the fact that I'm writing SQL keywords with lowercase. It's case insensitive. It's just a convention that you want to put your keywords in uppercase later. It's just a thing for neatness. So I'm doing select concat first name last name has full name from actor, and I want it to order this by the last name, and by default it will return last name in ascending order. When I run this, it's going to select this with all the last names that start with A first, then B, and then C. But if I want it to be in descending order, I will use the keyword DESC like this, and it's going to start with last names that start with Z, then Y, then W, and down like that. If you want to specify ascending, which is always a default, you use ASC like this. So this is how we sort data in ascending or descending order. You can sort by more than one column. We want to sort by last name first, then first name. So when we have things like two last names that have the same order, then it goes further to sort by first name. So it goes last name first, then first name sorting. And so let's do this by descending, and we'll see some slight changes in what it returns, because now it's sorting by last name and then by first name. Let's take a look at the customer and the rental tables and see what data they hold, and try to use this to illustrate the filter. So let's use secular web, and what I want to do is select all from customers. So when I run this, I can see all of the columns and the data held by the customer database table. We have a customer ID which is numeric, which will make it easy for us to filter this by customer ID. Let's say I want to get all of the customers where the customer ID is either 2 or 300 or 15, but I don't want to use the where customer ID equal to 2 or customer ID equal to 300. There are shorter ways to do this. Let's try the long method, where customer ID is equal to 2, or we can use the OR logical operator to say return if the customer ID is 2, or the customer ID is 300, or the customer ID is 15. And when we run this, we should get all of the rows where the customer ID is 2, 300, or 15. So we have select all from customer where customer ID 2 or 300 or 15. And so we have 3 customers, 2, 15, and 3. So we filter this by customer ID. But this doesn't really make any sense to write this so long like this. We can use another clause saying where customer ID in, and then in a pair of brackets we put in 2, 300. When we run this, it will return the same rows. So let's change this from 300 to 200 and see, and it will return another set of rows. So we can say where it is in 1, 3, 250. So you can see this is a shorter method than writing a long chain of OR statements, because all we want to do is to see that if any condition is true, return that row. But when we use the AND statement, it means all of the conditions that are chained together must be true. So if we have several conditions that either or should return, we can use the IN statement, and in a pair of brackets specify the list of the conditions that you want to specify. Let's look at the rental table to see whether we have a customer who rented several movies, so that we can use that to illustrate how to actually filter on a deeper level. So let's look at select all from rental. So in this rental table, we have the rental ID, we have customer IDs. Now we want to filter this by customer ID. And if we say select all from rental, we'll have a lot of customers renting several movies. If we want to get something like, I just want to know the customers that rented a movie, and I don't want it in duplicate. So for instance, we can see that, let's say, where customer ID is equal to, let's use 126 and run this. We can see that customer ID 126 has rented 28 movies, seen by the number of rows that were returned. We are not interested in the number of rentals that has happened with customer ID 126. We just want to know if customer ID 126 actually rented a movie. We can use an SQL statement called the distinct to return uniquely the customer IDs that have rented a movie. So let's say, for instance, I want to return all of the rows from the customer table. I want to return uniquely. So if customer ID has 10 rentals, I just want to return customer ID once to tell me that yes, customer ID this actually rented a movie. I don't care the number of times or the number of movie. I just want to know if that customer ID exists in the rental. I will use select distinct. Distinct is an SQL keyword, and I want to say which column I want to select uniquely. I just want only one unique value. So if the customer ID appears 10 times, just return it once for me. So I'll say select distinct customer ID from rental. And when I run this, I'm not going to have the customer ID in duplicate anymore. I'm going to have them returned only once. If I remove the distinct, you can see we have 599 rows returned. If I remove the distinct statement here and I just select customer ID column alone, we are going to have more rows returned because it will return duplicates, and we'll have 1000 rows returned. So we have several number one. I don't want to see it several times. I only want to see it once. So based on your use case, we have the distinct statement that will uniquely select the ID. So we are going to see this a lot when you start developing your softwares, because there are sometimes you just want to know if something exists in something, and you don't need to say return it several times. You just use the distinct keyword, and there are several applications of this, and that we're going to see in part 3 of this course. So we've discussed the aliasing using the has keyword to rename a column when you do filter data. We have seen how to sort data. We have seen how to filter data in more details. But sometimes we have information that we want to get that a database table do not hold in one place, and we want to have all of this coming from one location. For instance, if we look at the actor table, let's say select all from actor. We have the actor ID, the actor name, and the last update. If we go further to look at the film table, we have the film ID, the title, the description, the year released, the language ID. Now we want to know which actor acted in which film. There is a table called the film actor table that does not return the name, but it returns the actor ID. So the film actor table and the actor table have the actor ID column in common, which is like a foreign key that links both tables together to say, if you look at this actor ID and you go to the actor table, you will know the name of the actor who has this ID. Same thing, it has the film ID. If you look at the film actor table and you go to the film table, you will see what film ID is linked to what film, and you will see what actor acted in that film. So you need to join these 3 tables to be able to get the actor ID, the actor name, and the film ID and the title of the movie all in one table. And we are going to look at how to join tables to be able to return what we want from different tables in something called a join statement in the next lesson. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.